The sprawling Californian ranch, bathed in the golden hues of perpetual sunset, was known as the Sanctuary of Veritas. To the outside world, it was a haven of spiritual enlightenment, a place where disillusioned souls found purpose and belonging under the charismatic guidance of its leader, Father Elias. But for Sarah, whose younger brother, Ethan, had been lured into its fold, Veritas was a gilded cage, its serenity a deceptive mask for something far more sinister. Ethan had always been searching. A sensitive soul adrift in the noisy chaos of modern life, he found solace in Father Elias's soothing words, broadcast through online sermons that promised inner peace and a connection to a higher truth. Sarah had watched, a growing unease twisting in her gut, as Ethan's once vibrant personality faded, replaced by a placid devotion to Elias and the teachings of Veritas. His once critical mind became a mirror reflecting only the leader's pronouncements. The emotional hook was a slow, insidious erosion of Ethan's very being, the theft of his autonomy by a man cloaked in spiritual authority. Sarah's pleas, her desperate attempts to reason with Ethan, were met with a glazed-over smile and recited passages from Veritas's sacred texts. He spoke of collective consciousness, of shedding earthly attachments, his eyes holding a distant, unsettling light. The suspense built with each unanswered phone call, each stilted email that echoed Father Elias's rhetoric. Sarah felt an invisible wall rising between her and her brother, brick by painstaking brick, cemented by the cult's unwavering grip. Driven by a primal fear, Sarah began her own investigation. Late nights were spent poring over Veritas's online presence, dissecting Elias's sermons, and connecting with others who had managed to escape the cult's clutches. Whispers emerged from the shadows, tales of financial exploitation, psychological manipulation, and a chilling demand for absolute obedience. Former members spoke of re-education sessions that broke down individual will, of sleep deprivation and constant surveillance that eroded their sense of self. The major power shift occurred when Sarah stumbled upon a hidden forum, a digital sanctuary for Veritas defectors. Here, the carefully constructed image of Father Elias began to crumble. Stories of his opulent lifestyle, funded by members' life savings, contrasted starkly with the cult's ascetic teachings. Accounts of his iron-fisted control, enforced by a shadowy inner circle known as the Disciples of Truth, painted a picture of a tyrannical leader, not a benevolent guide. Then came the horrifying revelation: the disappearance of Maya, a young woman who had dared to question Father Elias's authority. The forum buzzed with fear and speculation, the official explanation of her leaving voluntarily ringing hollow against the backdrop of the cult's controlling nature. Sarah felt a cold dread grip her heart. Ethan, in his unquestioning devotion, was now in a place where dissent was met with silence, where questioning could lead to oblivion. Armed with the testimonies from a forum and her own mounting evidence, Sarah approached the local authorities. Sheriff Brody, a well-meaning but skeptical man, initially dismissed the concerns as the overzealous worries of a protective sister. The cult, after all, had deep pockets and influential lawyers. The dramatic irony was thick. The very people sworn to protect were blind to the danger lurking in plain sight, swayed by the cult's carefully cultivated image of respectability. Frustrated by the inaction of law enforcement, Sarah turned to investigative journalist Jake Miller, a man known for his tenacity and his willingness to take on powerful institutions. Jake, initially wary, was soon drawn into Sarah's compelling narrative. The chilling consistency of the defector's stories and the unsettling charisma of Father Elias painting a disturbing picture. Together, Sarah and Jake began to dig deeper, their investigation leading them down a rabbit hole of financial irregularities, shell corporations, and a disturbing pattern of disappearances surrounding the Sanctuary of Veritas. They uncovered land deeds bought under false names, hinting at properties beyond the ranch, hidden locations where the cult's grip might be even tighter. The life lesson began to crystallize. The insidious nature of manipulation, the way charismatic leaders can exploit vulnerabilities and twist genuine desires for belonging into instruments of control. It was a stark reminder that true freedom lies in critical thinking and the courage to question authority, no matter how persuasive its voice. Their investigation culminated in a tense confrontation outside the sanctuary. Sarah, armed with Jake's recording equipment, attempted to speak to Ethan, her voice cracking with desperation as she pleaded with him to see the truth. Father Elias, flanked by his disciples, watched with a chillingly serene smile, his eyes locking with Sarah's in a silent battle of wills. Just as Ethan seemed to waver, a flicker of recognition in his eyes, a black SUV sped through the ranch gates, its tires spitting gravel. The disciples tensed, their expressions shifting from serene to guarded. A figure emerged from the vehicle, someone Sarah had never seen before, their face obscured by shadow, but their presence radiating an undeniable aura of power. Father Elias' smile faltered, a flicker of something akin to fear crossing his features. The newcomer spoke, their voice low and commanding, addressing Father Elias not by his revered title, but by a name Sarah didn't recognize, a name that seemed to strip away the cult leader's carefully constructed persona. Elias, the figure said, their voice laced with menace. The harvest is behind schedule. The suspense hung heavy in the air. Who was this mysterious figure? What harvest were they referring to? And what hold did they have over the seemingly untouchable Father Elias? The carefully constructed world of Veritas was cracking, revealing a power structure far more complex and dangerous than Sarah could have ever imagined. The fight for Ethan's mind, and perhaps his life, had just taken a terrifying new turn. The newcomer's voice, sharp and laced with an undeniable authority, seemed to physically deflate Father Elias. The serene mask he so carefully cultivated fractured, revealing a flicker of something akin to genuine fear. He stammered, his usual eloquent pronouncements replaced by hesitant, subservient tones. The initiates are progressing, Overseer. The harvest will be bountiful. Overseer. The title sent a fresh wave of dread through Sarah. This wasn't just a charismatic cult leader. This was a cog in a larger, more organized machine. The power shift was seismic, revealing Father Elias as a mere puppet in a game far more intricate and dangerous. The disciples of truth, who moments before had radiated unwavering loyalty to Elias, now shifted their gazes to the Overseer, their obedience absolute and immediate. The Overseer's eyes, sharp and assessing, finally settled on Sarah and Jake. A thin smile stretched across their lips, a smile that held no warmth, only a chilling calculation. And who are these interlopers, Elias? Before Elias could formulate a carefully crafted lie, Jake stepped forward, his journalist instincts kicking in. We're concerned citizens, Overseer. We're worried about the well-being of individuals within Veritas, like my friend's brother, Ethan. A low chuckle emanated from the Overseer. Well-being is our primary concern here at Veritas. We nurture the spirit, we guide lost souls. Your concerns are misplaced. But their eyes flickered to the recording device in Jake's hand, a spark of something akin to recognition, or perhaps threat, flashing within them. The twist came swiftly and unexpectedly. As the Overseer spoke, Ethan, who had been standing LY beside a disciple, suddenly swayed. His eyes, which had held that distant, unsettling light, flickered with a moment of clarity. A brief return to brother Sarah remembered. He whispered, his voice barely audible, "Sarah, the tunnels." Before Sarah could react, a disciple's hand clamped firmly on Ethan's arm, his eyes hardening. The moment of connection was broken, the light extinguished. Ethan's gaze returned to its vacant state, his brief rebellion brutally suppressed. The Overseer's smile tightened. Forgive the enthusiasm of our devoted. Ethan is simply experiencing the joy of collective unity. But the forced joviality in their voice didn't reach their cold eyes. They knew Sarah's connection to Ethan, and they likely suspected their investigation. The Overseer then issued a sharp command to Elias. See to our guests, Elias. Ensure they understand the benefits of our sanctuary. It was a thinly veiled threat, a clear indication that Sarah and Jake were now under their watchful eye. They were escorted by two silent, imposing disciples to a guest cottage on the periphery of the sanctuary. The cottage was comfortable enough, but the heavy locks on the doors and the constant presence of their guards made it clear they were prisoners. Inside the cottage, Jake reviewed his recordings, his brow furrowed. Ethan's whispered word, "tunnels," replayed in his mind. It was a breadcrumb, a desperate plea from beneath the layers of indoctrination. But what tunnels? Sarah, Her heart pounding with a renewed sense of urgency, remembered snippets of conversations she'd overheard from former members online. Hushed whispers of underground passages used for special ceremonies and the transport of supplies. Could these tunnels be the key to understanding what was truly happening within Veritas? Another twist emerged as Jake managed to discreetly access the cottage's outdated computer. He discovered a series of encrypted files, seemingly logistical data. After hours of painstaking work, he cracked one of the files, revealing schematics, detailed blueprints of an extensive network of underground tunnels beneath the sanctuary ranch, connecting various buildings and extending far beyond the property lines. Certain sections of the tunnels were marked with cryptic symbols, and one area was labeled the Harvest Chamber. The term sent a shiver down Sarah's spine, echoing the overseer's chilling words. What was being harvested? Souls? Lives? As they pored over the blueprints, a power outage plunged the cottage into darkness. The guards outside remained silent, their presence a palpable threat in the inky blackness. Suddenly, a section of the wall behind their bed slid silently open, revealing a narrow, dimly lit passage. A figure stood silhouetted in the opening, their face obscured by shadow, but their whispered words were clear. "Follow me, if you want to save Ethan." The suspense hung heavy in the suffocating darkness. Who was this mysterious figure? Were they a friend or another enemy within the labyrinthine structure of Veritas? And could they be trusted to lead them through the treacherous tunnels towards an uncertain fate? The harvest was coming, and time was running out. The silhouetted figure in the hidden passage remained still, their whispered plea hanging in the darkness. Sarah and Jake exchanged a wary glance. Trust was a fragile commodity within the walls of Veritas, but the urgency in the stranger's voice, the desperate mention of Ethan, tipped the scales. They slipped through the opening, the wall panel sliding silently shut behind them, plunging them into the cool, musty air of the tunnels. Their guide, a young woman with haunted eyes who introduced herself as Maya, the same Maya who had supposedly left Veritas voluntarily, explained in hushed tones that she had been helping others escape the cult's grip from within. The tunnels, she revealed, were a secret network known only to a few, used for clandestine activities and the movement of those who had fallen out of favor. The twist was that Maya hadn't escaped. She had gone underground, a ghost in the machine, working to dismantle Veritas from its very foundations. Maya led them through a labyrinth of narrow passages, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and something vaguely medicinal. She spoke of Father Elias's increasing paranoia, the overseer's tightening control, and the true nature of the harvest. Not spiritual enlightenment, but a twisted form of forced labor and the exploitation of the cult members' resources for purposes far beyond their understanding. The tunnels opened into a vast cavern, illuminated by a strange, pulsating light emanating from a central chamber. From the shadows, Sarah and Jake witnessed a disturbing scene. Rows of initiates, including Ethan, hooked up to strange devices, their minds seemingly being drained or manipulated. Overseer stood overseeing the operation, his face illuminated by the eerie glow, while Father Elias looked on with detached, almost fearful expression. The power dynamic was now starkly clear. Father Elias was a figurehead, a charismatic face for a far more sinister operation run by the enigmatic overseer. The cult wasn't just about mind control. It was about the systematic exploitation, and perhaps even the physical draining of its members. Maya explained that the Harvest Chamber was where the Overseer and a select inner circle were siphoning off the initiate's mental energy, their life force, for some unknown, nefarious purpose. The devices were a form of psychic technology, alien and terrifying. A tense confrontation ensued. Maya, Sarah, and Jake, with the help of a small group of disillusioned members Maya had contacted within the tunnels, confronted the Overseer and the disciples. The element of surprise was on their side, the sudden rebellion shattering the Overseer's aura of control. A fierce struggle broke out in the cavern, the chanting of the Overseer's loyalists clashing with the cries of liberation from those seeking to break free. Sarah fought her way through the chaos, her eyes fixed on Ethan. She reached him just as a disciple attempted to increase the power flow to his device. With a surge of adrenaline, she ripped the wires free. Ethan gasped, his eyes fluttering open, the vacant light finally receding. For the first time in months, Sarah saw her brother, the real Ethan, Looking back at her, confusion and pain etched on his face. The arrival of Sheriff Brody and his deputies, finally convinced by Jake's evidence in the escalating chaos, marked a true turning point. The authorities, descending into the cavern through a hidden entrance revealed by Maya, overwhelmed the remaining loyalists. The reign of the Overseer and Father Elias, built on lies and manipulation, crumbled. In the aftermath, the Sanctuary of Veritas was exposed for what it truly was: a prison of the mind, a place of exploitation and terror. The life lesson was stark. The allure of easy answers and charismatic leaders can blind individuals to the most insidious forms of control. True enlightenment comes from within, from critical thought and the courage to stand against the crowd. Justice, though hard won, finally descended upon Veritas, not in a fiery blaze, but in the cold, hard reality of handcuffs and courtrooms. The final scene showed Sarah and Ethan hand in hand, walking away from the now desolate sanctuary. Ethan's eyes held a newfound clarity, the shadow of Veritas finally lifting. As they reached the edge of the property, Ethan stopped, turning back to look at the silent ranch. A single figure stood in the distance, watching them from the shadows of a dilapidated building: Maya. She offered a small, knowing smile before disappearing back into the darkness. The fight for true freedom, Sarah realized, was not always fought in the light. The tendrils of Veritas might have been severed, but the seeds of such darkness could lie dormant, waiting for fertile ground to take root once more. The silence that followed their departure was heavy with unspoken questions, a lingering unease that hinted at a future where the fight against mind control might need to be waged again, in a different form, in a different place. The story of Veritas was over, but the battle for minds in America might have just begun.